see the grid coming up in front of us here, which is Paul Simard on pole alongside Michael Taylor on the front row of the grid. Then it's Neil Chisnell and Harry Story. Neil Chisnell, of course, has been a race winner so far this season as well. Adam Sparrow, championship leader, alongside Dev Singhal for AB Motorsport row 3. Then it's Steve Bartlett and Steve Foden, former champion in P8. Paul Bateman, who's been a front runner in the Clubman Championship before, good to see his pace looking well in 9th. And Bo Parry, good to see him back on the grid too in P10. Jason Greatrex, 11th, veteran of the championship. Matthew McCluckey, who's been busy today in Clubman already, P12. Then it's Chris Wright and Adam Craig from Ollie Walden and Dennis Pilamonkin to rank out the top 16, followed by 17th place Josh Pato, 18th for Tim Storer. 19th, crucially, is where Charlie Snell is, of course, the competition's administrator. For BRSEC, who starts on the 10th row alongside Chris Thelwell, a row geographically ahead of Peter Williams and the Luke Souch, who's the head of operations for BRSEC, starting at 22nd. Then it's Bradley McLagan, Richard Bartlett, Daniel Lengyel, Simon Privet, David Sculler and Andrew Gilligan, rounding out the very healthy 28-car field of Mazda MX-5 NA Mark 1 machines, all built to identical specifications as per the regs, and certainly set to be quite interesting, particularly as of course the wet conditions do tend to mix things up and be a bit more of a performance leveller. Paul Simard was the best of them, but I suspect quite heavily that the likes of Neil Chisnell, Adam Sparrow, and particularly Steve Foden, they ain't going to stay where they are on the grid for very long.
No, definitely not. We know that they will move forward from there, and Sparrow in particular we've seen go well in the wet in the past actually, so a bit odd that he didn't quite get things hooked together, but he was within 3/4 of a second of pole position. It was actually very, very competitive despite the tricky conditions. 1 second covered at a glance the top 10 cars, more or less. In fact, yeah, just under a tenth of a second, 11 more or less within a second of each other. So very close in a wet qualifying session. That's sort of a bit less likely to happen. In the dry, times tend to be closer. So yeah, really, really competitive stuff from the MX-5 drivers in qualifying. But I do anticipate a little bit of a shuffling of the order slightly in the race. And yeah, the likes of Adam Sparrow, Steve Foden and others. Bo Parry, I would say, maybe from 10th could move forward from there. Paul Bateman we've seen go well in this championship in the past. And they should all be looking to move forward from the tail end of the top 10. Good to see a few drivers doing this alongside a Clubman weekend as well. We mentioned obviously Charlie Snell and Luke Souch, but with Dennis Pilamonkin out there as well, who we saw running towards the front and in fact was at one point on course for a podium in the Clubman race earlier on, getting another bite at the cherry now in the first of 3 races this weekend for the AD Modular Mazda MX-5 Championship, which again has had some fantastic drivers racing in it over the years, and a couple of familiar faces that have stuck around for the last 3 or 4 seasons, including former champion Steve Foden, of course, who starts 8th on the grid. Would be remiss of me, I suspect, not to mention another former member of this paddock who's out racing in the States this weekend. Close friend to some within the paddock, he says begrudgingly, Luke Pullen, who is competing over in mid-Ohio in the Global Mazda MX-5 Cup. Really big opportunity for him, competing in the Mark IV cars. We've had a few BRSCC Mazda MX-5 races over the years. Have gone over to America to take part in the MX-5 shootout, which Luke did for the last couple of years. And his first race is this evening, after we finished racing here at Donington Park. So head over to YouTube and cheer him on if you're a fan of the BRSCC's MX-5 paddock. I'm sure a lot of drivers up and down the grid will be wishing him well as well. So shout out to him. And he came from this championship, won his first ever race, in fact, in the MX-5 Championship here at Donington Park a couple of years ago. So it goes to show that if you do want to have a career as a racing driver, we're seeing more and more youngsters these days coming into MX-5s. Luke was one. Ted Bradbury, of course, a couple of years ago, came straight out of karting into MX-5s and immediately showed the world how quick he was. And he's been doing a lot of Fun Cup racing internationally now as well as in the UK. So it's a great stepping stone and a great launching pad for your career still after all these years.
And MX-5 racing has always been a popular place to go and learn your craft. I think it's for me one of the best cars that you could drive or at least race to understand at least mechanical grip with cars. There's about 3 or 4 that will do the job for me. A Mazda MX-5, a Lotus Elise, a Caterham and a Formula Ford.
Yes.
If you can race at least and master those, at least one of those 4 cars, it helps you master proper mechanical grip and car dynamics at that point, at least for rear-wheel drive. Of course, front-wheel drive will be different hot hatches you could throw into the mix. But I think if you can race well a Mazda MX-5, a Lotus Elise, a Caterham and or a Formula 4 pretty well, you're pretty well sorted as a driver. I think if you can be quite quick because you could get to learn the understanding of setting up and coping with the car, mechanical grip only, and then when you're ready, start to dial on the aero as your career goes on, if you want to go in that direction, which is good to see. And the Global MX-5 Cup has always been a popular category. It's always a YouTube favourite, not just for moments, but also for the close racing it provides. And we both know Luke in terms of he's very much known for his personality. I think his personality suits the US. He's very much,
yes.
I would call it almost like a showman personality. He's very much he's got very charismatic.
All right, steady on, Scott. Come on, his ego's big enough as it is.
As I was saying, and on top of that, he's a pretty handy driver on top of that too. He's taken race victories, he's taken podiums a lot, and he's certainly always been very competitive. So I figure that, considering that in his first session he ended up, I think, was it 18th out of 40
and then I
something
think
cars?
16th in session 2.
So to be in the top half in his first go shows that these Mark 1s certainly taught him well.
Exactly so. So, as I said, if you want to make a career as a racing driver, this is a brilliant breeding ground, isn't it, for talent? And it would be really nice to see some other drivers, actually, the likes of Steve Foden, for example, who's been a front runner in MX-5 racing for getting on for a decade now, probably, Steve Foden. He might not thank me for reminding you of that. Had a spell away from MX-5s racing the Audi TTs for a bit, but never really got on with front-wheel drive quite as well as the rear-wheel drive Mazdas, but he's a hugely talented driver, and he is, along with a few others, more than capable, I think, of cracking it internationally, if only the opportunities came about. And of course, it's not always as straightforward as that, but put yourself in the right shop window, and you never know where the opportunities might take you. So, it'll be interesting to see how Luke gets on, and whether maybe any of our current crop of Mazda MX-5 drivers can go and have a go at racing MX-5s elsewhere. It's still a hugely popular category of racing, and you're about to see why it's a favourite of ours in the commentary box, because the racing is always top quality. And again, Donington Park National Circuit, one make slipstream heavy racing. It's guaranteed excitement, isn't it? And I think we're about to see that demonstrated before our very eyes.
I've mainly said that I think within reason, Donington Park, at least the national circuit, never produces a bad race.
No.
Regardless of how many cars are on the grid, regardless of what the championship is, tends to be, in particular one make, you're absolutely right. I've never really seen what I class as a terrible or a bad race at Donington Park. You're right, it is a real momentum circuit. It's a circuit that has a really nice, when you get into the groove of it, it's a really nice natural flow to it. Of course, you've got the natural rising through the elevation changes on the circuit, but the long flowing corners. It's a fast circuit in general. The only real big braking zone you really have, I wouldn't even class in too many cases the red gate's that a massive braking zone. It is a braking zone, but it's not scrubbing up a massive amount of speed, because you can carry lots through red gate. The biggest braking spot is probably going to be down into the chicane, or if you're going either left onto the GP loop and do the 2 hairpins, or in through the chicane towards the back. So lots of great racing, always pretty much guaranteed for the most part at Donington Park. And as we said, I think we're about to see 28 Mazda MX-5 Mark 1 cars once again prove our theory right.
I suspect so. So Paul Simard and Michael Taylor make up the front row. Neil Chisnell's blue car starts third alongside Harry Storer, and then Adam Sparrow starting from fifth. One to watch for sure. The revs are starting to rise on the grid. 20 minutes of racing in the AD Modular Mazda MX-5 Championship burst into life now, and who gets the best of the start? Pretty even in the first phase of the start, I'd say, for the front row starters. Not a great start for Chisnell, and so Storer gets ahead of him on the outside line, and Adam Sparrow comes to his inside. He'll go through. And in fact, Foden moves up to challenge the blue car as well. So Neil Chisnell loses a little bit of ground, and not quite as much ground as will be lost by Ollie Walden, who slides into the gravel trap and almost back into the road, miraculously avoided by everybody else, although there was another car, Richard Bartlett that spun into the gravel and may be stuck. Hopefully that's not going to be the case. Leaders down the hill, and Adam Sparrow bullies his way into second position. Brilliant start that from Sparrow. Fifth on the grid to second, and getting his elbows out already.
Harry Storer is being elbowed on the exit out of Craneville Bend, that's wrong circuit, at the old hairpin. That was by Steve Bartlett. The one biggest loser from that, dropping backwards down the order, was Dev Singhal. He was P6 on the grid, but he's down outside the top 10 already by the looks of it, about 11th or 12th as they come through McLean's for the first time. There's Harry Storer, who started 4th. He's now down to 7th as Simard tries to pull away. Sparrow up to 2nd, of course, as we said. Chisnell now taking advantage of that loss of momentum for Taylor. He's now made his way up into 3rd place. Now, they're going to probably perform some kind of a live snatch to get Richard Bartlett's car out of the gravel. In fact, there it is right on cue. So try and move out and tell him to stay firm. And thus there'll be yellow flags down at Redgate. Into the chicane for the first time. Simard leads it then. He's never won an MX-5 race before, at least not in this championship. And they're all over each other for position. Steve Foden is in the mix with Storer and also with Chisnell and also Bartlett. And of course, there are yellow flags that were on the exit of the hairpin, of the chicane. And all the arms out, which suggests it suggests that safety car's is out, but of course they're all slowing down for the. They were saying that like the safety car was on the circuit, but the safety car hasn't moved, and there's no safety car deployed. So whether we're just acknowledging the snatch vehicle, but nonetheless, now it's right back to Sparrow. That confused you for a second there, but what's now happened is because of that, Simard, Sparrow, and Chisholm have pulled away because there's no safety car. Maybe there was anticipation of one because they saw yellow flags on the exit of the chicane, so thought, okay, well, they're going to slow down now. This has now bunched this pack up for 6th and 7th place, and Steve Foden's right in the middle, and Dev Singal's come from nowhere around the outside of him. Adam Craig got Matthew McCluskey in there. Peter Monkin's in there as well. That was a rather confusing situation, but it has now brought a hole in the field. The top 3 have pulled away with Taylor trying to go with them, and then everyone else is stacked up for 5th place behind him. That was rather bizarre. Yeah, I'm not really sure why we had a yellow flag out that far down the main straight. Redgate, yes, fine, but they were really wanting to try and bring the field under control there some way before the incident zone. Anyway, 3-way fight for the lead then, and Adam Sparrow will be really grateful now that he made such a good start, because had he not, he'd have been buried back in the pack with Steve Foden, who of course started near him on the grid, perhaps not really having a chance for the race win. Out of the chicane they go. Lonely there in 4th is Michael Taylor, and equally lonely Paul Bateman in 5th, and then everyone else trying to be 6th position. It's Harry Storer who is at the front of that group in the 17, and everyone else queuing up behind him. Across the line they will go. Foden in that group as well, the white and gold number 77 car, as they approach the braking zone at Redgate Corner. Down through the gears, through the right-hander, long train of cars, which includes, as you quite rightly said, Dev Singal. And I think that is the Ali Bray championship-winning car from last year, isn't it? It certainly looks like it. I know he did either sell that car, might still be running it, but sold it to a new owner. And Ali here this weekend preparing cars rather than out there racing. Thank goodness, says the rest of the MX-5 field, because he was tough to beat last year, wasn't he? Tough to beat. He won every single one, didn't he? He set a new record. That's something not even Tom Roach could manage. Yeah. And Steve Foden on the grass and keeps his foot in. Whether he was trying to go around the outside or got elbowed out there, answers on a postcard, because we caught that right as that was happening as it began. Adam Craig has powered his way around the outside and carried the momentum. 62, which is... that is Chris Wright in the machine, and that's Paul Bateman being elbowed out wide and losing 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 places. As now, there goes Adam Sparrow up to the front and into the lead of the race. So past Paul Simard, under braking into the chicane. So Adam Sparrow, the championship leader, powering on to what will be, if he holds on to this, his 5th win from 6 races, and sets the fast lap of the race whilst doing it, which then gets immediately eclipsed by Michael Taylor and then by Steve Bartlett. So what was a 125.6 has now been eclipsed into a 124.4. So both now with clear air, both Taylor and Bartlett, they are motoring their way back towards this top 3. They are indeed. Steve Foden here to the inside at Redgate Corner. Will gain another position there, I think, on the way into the first turn. Side by side for second, though. Neil Chisnell sideways around the outside of Paul Simard. And Paul able to hang on to second position. But you're absolutely right. The 4th place man, Taylor, definitely catching the leaders. And Bartlett doing his best to go with them in 5th position as well. So I don't think it's going to be just a 3-horse race for long at this rate. We've still got nearly 3/4 of the race to go. So plenty of time for Taylor and Bartlett to join in the fun at the head of the field. Storer looking increasingly lonely in 6th position. And then missed the fight for 7th. Foden then trying to keep the 29 of Adam Craig at bay. Craig started 13th, so Adam's had a decent run. 6th place is gained in the early stages. And looking to try and make that a 7th place gained at the expense of the former champion Steve Foden, who's been roughed up a bit in this race, hasn't he? Got the wrong side of that bizarre yellow flag situation earlier on, and then ended up on the grass through Starkeys. He's lucky to still be going, actually, albeit down in 8th position. Leaders then come out of the chicane. There goes Steve Bartlett in the all-green machine trying to chase after Taylor. Then comes this armada of MX-5s, and Foden makes another mistake. Over the chicane he travels, over the gravel, keeps his foot in, but loses several places across the line. There goes Dev Singal and the recovering Paul Bateman, so he's lost 5 positions as a result of that. He was now going to come across the line in 10th. Now it's Wilson Wheeler's Adam Craig literally elbows Harry Storer aside, and now gives the chance for another elbow from Chris Wright. Move out of the way, and not so pucker there for Harry Storer. He gets pushed out, and Steve Foden's off again in the background. So quite the couple of laps for him. He gets pushed out wide onto the grass in the approach towards Starkeys. Then he goes across the chicane in the gravel at the end of a lap, and then one corner later finds himself gravel tracking again through Redgate. For the former champion, ain't the best of starts to his weekend after qualifying.
No, not really. I wonder whether that was just because he had dirt on his tyres from the moment at the chicane, or whether there's maybe something more serious going on there. Damage, perhaps, to the car from the first couple of off-track excursions, but something strange going on for Steve Foden. It's not a Steve Foden-esque performance, this is it really. Harry Storer, of course, also lost ground through all of that. His separate incident at Redgate, so Jason Greytrex now up behind him. And Jason in the red line car, number 33, is going to potentially get the move made here because Storer was very wide at Coppice. Sparrow, meanwhile, loses the lead to Paul Simard. Easy to forget that we've got this three-way fight for the lead going on with all of the action behind, but Simard is back out in front now. Sparrow tucks in behind in second for now and is content to stay there for the time being. Doesn't try and retaliate into Redgate. Didn't need to in the end. Simard outbraked himself and Sparrow's back up the inside. Side by side then for the lead. Neil Chisnell goes with Sparrow, interestingly, as they drop down the hill, and that will hang Paul Simard out to dry. Sparrow back to the lead, and is it going to be Chisnell to second this time? Yes, it is. Tried that outside move at the Craners a few laps ago, and this time manages to make it stick. So good battling at the front of the field, but to continue the point we were making earlier on, is this going to invite certainly the fourth place man back into the party?
It seems to be starting to. He's now got company with Steve Bartlett. It's going to bring both of them into play if they keep on fighting. It's the phrase I've said all along. If the harder they fight each other, the easier it is for the two cars to take advantage of that, and they will if it continues at this rate. And we still haven't even hit half distance in this race. In towards Coppice. Now it's Chisnell applying the pressure to the silver and orange of Adam Sparrow. There's a little something smoking or wisping out the back of Paul Simard's car. It might have been the bodywork rubbing on the tyre, maybe, but coming out proper the rear of the car rather than the wheel arch, but we'll keep an eye on that. Down towards the chicane they go again. Better under brakes, little twitch, and that twitch was more enough to give Chisnell the advantage he needed to go round the outside, which he does. So across line they go. He gets the push from Simard on the exit, so the mistake there from Sparrow sees him drop to third by the gets to the line, and Bartlett sets the fastest lap of the race. He's down with the toe of Taylor. They're now side by side battling for position. Now for the battle for the lead. Here comes Simard back into Redgate corner to take the place, which he does, and doesn't allow Chisnell to get to the apex either. That now allows Sparrow to get through. Bartlett gets past Taylor and pushes him out wide, and they're all going to come together at some point because they're all battling amongst each other. Ollie Walden's out of the race. The shame his race has come early after he went off into the gravel, and now down in towards the old hairpin. They're almost all together now, but we're kind of back where we started, which is Walden versus Sparrow versus Chisnell, but now it's Bartlett ahead of Taylor after they had their own skirmish, and Taylor's falling back. And everywhere you look, as we predicted in typical MX-5 fashion, there are battles literally up and down the entire field. It's brilliant to watch, as it always is.
It certainly is, and we're not even halfway through the race quite yet, so this is got plenty more to give. That's Harry Storer through the gravel at the old hairpin, bounces back onto the road. That's always a slightly awkward rejoin, isn't it? It is 5 for the lead, though, as Matthew McCluskey is given a 5-second time penalty for track limits. In fact, it's 4 for the lead. What's happened to Taylor's dropped well back, hasn't he, in fourth position?
That was they had a skirmish at Red
They did, yes, you're right.
Back.
I didn't realise he'd lost quite so much time, but obviously lost momentum all the way down the hill. Adam Sparrow's got some momentum, though, courtesy maybe of a shove from Neil Chisnell, because they both get themselves back ahead of Simard, who I think started the lap second, got back to the lead at one point. Now he's third at the end of the lap as Adam Sparrow reclaims the lead of the race, but Steve Bartlett is with them, and I'm sure Michael Taylor will catch back up to them before the flag. Brilliant racing this from the Mazda MX-5 Championship then, as they round the right-hander at Redgate corner. And Adam Sparrow has got the lead, but it's doubtful that he's going to get away. So I think before too much longer, Neil Chisnell will have a go at getting past him, and we'll start the whole cycle again.
Good performance in general, I'd say, also from NHA Motorsport. Good to see two of their cars up in leading group. Paul Austin's team, a stalwart of the championship. But good to have both Paul and Steve in good form in this run, in this first part of the weekend for the AD Modular Mazda MX-5 Championship. 4 for the lead, but as you rightfully said, Andy, looks like Mikey Taylor is just starting to creep back towards them, especially if they start driving like this, because they're all stacking up behind each other. And there's now Sparrow, again, being literally pushed up the hill towards Coppice Corner. They turn into this corner. It's a blind apex. You have to turn in right at the crest and hope that where you've turned in is enough to carry the momentum. Let the car drift all the way out to the outside onto the racing line, and they're all line astern on the approach down towards the chicane. So Sparrow from Chisnell, from Simard, from Bartlett. Michael Taylor just trying to close in bit by bit as they approach the braking zone. No side-by-side antics this time, but remember, Sparrow's not adverse to a mistake or two. He made that twitch that forced him wide, and that then gave Sparrow the chance to get himself around the outside and then the inside to confirm the move by the time they got towards Redgate. They're now into the second half of the race. They're now on to starting their 9th lap. Simar taking a little peek to the outside towards Redgate under brakes, but Chisel's more focused on attacking Sparrow for the lead once more. And now that Bartlett has really exerted himself into the lead battle, he's right on the tail of Simar giving pressure. He will be the ultimate benefactor. But I think still, just keep an eye on that black car in the background, Mike Taylor, because the fall might be quite quick. But again, one small slip from any of them could bring them into play. Case in point, that was Bartlett going up the inside of Simard. Case in point, one small slip and it can change the whole catalyst of that lead battle.
Yeah, because again, you lose that momentum and you can lose half a second or more easy to the cars behind. Number 62 now being given a 10-second track limit time penalty, so dropping even further down the order will be the car that's 7th on the road, actually. So that's Chris Wright, who started 12th, gained some good ground earlier on, but 10 seconds in such a close group of cars as this is going to cost him quite a number of positions. Steve Foden will be one of those who will benefit. He's 10th at the moment after his various off-track excursions, and getting away slightly now from Jason Greytracks. And then Matthew McCluskey, who himself has a 5-second penalty to be added on at the end of the race. The leaders, though, back down through the chicane. We're about 2/3 race distance, and it's almost Scott 5 for the lead.
Yep, because Taylor has now latched on, and so he's now onto the tail of the top 4, as we thought he would do, particularly if they started scrapping amongst each other. They still haven't got away from each other. He'll be getting a quad tow from the 4 cars in front enough as they all bob around under brakes to try and find the optimal point to turn in. So still Sparrow holds on. They're all literally moving as one almost literally 20-wheel Mazda MX-5. It's that close together. So close you can literally throw a blanket over all of them in one group. Through the crane of curves, dipping down the hill towards the bottom. It's that very fast right-hander. It's one of those corners where you get right to the bottom. That's right where the compression is as they bob around on their suspension. A little wide for Bartlett over the curb. But look at this. They're all properly stacking up in some accordion effect. It's like a bottleneck on their run towards McLean's. Literally quite almost bumper to bumper into the braking zone. Chisnell just trying to find some kind of opportunity. And there goes Taylor up into 4th, up the inside of McLean's. That's one of the 4 picked off. Next target is Paul Simard if he can make his way through. Taylor, who I think we're right to say he was a former Jetta racer, if I'm right in saying so.
Not sure.
GT Academy, I think.
There was a Mike Taylor, definitely, as there's contact there between Michael and Steve Bartlett. But yeah, I couldn't see anything on his driver database account saying Mazda MX-5s, but that's not necessarily 100% accurate, I suppose. I'll do a bit more digging on that one. Once I see him, I'll recognise him if it is him. So if he gets on the podium, might get a quicker answer. But he's not far away from that. He's in 4th at the moment, isn't he, behind Simard? But Adam Sparrow, to his credit, is defending this lead quite well. It's an unenviable position that Adam finds himself in here, trying to keep these 4 drivers behind. Simard now nips to the inside of Chisnell, who gets a bit of a tap in the tail, I think, there from Michael Taylor through Redgate Corner. But all of this is going on behind Sparrow. Sometimes when you've got multiple cars queuing up behind you, particularly as you get into the closing stages, they're all so desperate to get ahead of each other that they somehow forget about the leader and don't really get a chance to attack the race leader. That's an agricultural line through the chicane for the 577 of Chris Thelwell, who didn't go through the gravel, in fairness, but found an access road there and took it at fairly high speed.
Yeah, where he going? That's not that's not the racing line. And extraordinary how he got there, because that's quite on the inside of the chicane, but that's right on the inside, so how he got there is quite thought. Meanwhile, further back in BRCC Internet Eternal Battle land, we can see in terms of the timing screen that Luke Souch is 20th. The question is, where is Charlie Snell? Because he is currently 24th. And he's 7 seconds behind. So whether he's had some antics at some point, not sure. There he is, I think, right at the top of the screen, coming down the hill. Meanwhile, this is it is a continuation of what happened in the Clubman race earlier on, because it's those things. Now Taylor's gone to 2nd. He's got past Sparrow. It's all changed. Look, Chisel's got to cross the gravel and skip the tyre stack. Mike Taylor now leads the way out of all of this. He was 5th about 2 laps ago. So that's all been happening whilst we've been looking at other battles. So Taylor now leads the way. Sparrow's into 2nd place. Simard's 3rd now. Bartlett is 4th. And Chisler, who was at one point leading, had the outside line, was offline, skipped through the chicane over the gravel, narrowly missed the tyre stack, gets back onto the rain 5th position, and to add an extra element, I think it started to rain as well, with about 4 minutes to go or so. This is going to be quite extraordinary.
Yep, I wouldn't count Chisnell out of this one yet, that's for sure, because they're going to start battling again in front of him. Look, you can see Taylor is mirror driving a little bit here. He was nowhere near the racing line through the crane of curves because he's focusing so much on what Sparrow's doing behind. Bartlett trying to find a gap to get alongside Paul Simard. That was dangerous at high speed through Starkey's corner, but yes, definitely windscreen wipers coming on. The wind has changed direction, by the way. It's now a tailwind down the pit straight, which means the weather is coming from this end of the circuit at McLean's, and you can see it's getting a bit slippery. You wouldn't really want to be the race leader in this situation, so Michael Taylor has hit the front at perhaps exactly the wrong time, and indeed he does drift wide up at Coppice corner. So Sparrow back alongside Steve Bartlett, 5-second penalty. So the green car 4th position, 5-second penalty for track limit. You can discount him for the time being from the battle for the win, and Adam Sparrow gets himself back to the lead of the race. So Sparrow to the front, and Simard goes with him. The top 3 cars then nose to tail, then Bartlett with a penalty in 4th, and Neil Chisnell's already back with them again in 5th.
Really is, and make that 4th on the road now, because he's now just slipped past Steve Bartlett, but if he hadn't got past him, he wouldn't have mattered anyway. Almost 3 abreast under brakes towards Redgate as Taylor's just sniffing around. There's a little tap in the rear corner for Simard as he tries to find his racing line. This now opens up the opportunity for Chisnell to put himself in the inside for 3rd. They're going to go wheel to wheel again, and down through the crane of curves. Chisnell has just about enough room to squeeze the MX-5 shaped gap through towards the old hairpin again, down the hill. We're going to get, I think, this and maybe at least one more lap, I think, to go through. We're looking at lap times. They cross the line with just under 3 minutes to go, and they're lapping the 124s. Might be touching over how many more laps they get. One more, maybe 2. We'll wait and see. Up the hill they'll come once more. Sparrow leading the charge. Simard hasn't won an MX-5 championship race, as Taylor's going to deny him that opportunity even further by putting him to 2nd place, and also Chisnell down to put him down to 4th, as he takes currently the final podium spot. Now back under brakes again through thin, and that was Taylor getting very out of shape. Big wiggle through Coppice. That now gives Chisnell the run he needs. Whether he jumped or whether he was pushed is another matter entirely, but he now gets straight onto the rear bumper to try and reclaim that position. This will give Sparrow a little bit of respite into the chicane. Now, I think it might be touch and go for lap times, so they're doing 124s. How close is it going to be? They might well get, if they handy, they might get 2 more laps. Across the line they go, and that's going on to somebody else. That's 99 across the line. That's Joshua Pato. And they crossed the line with how much to go? That was 1 minute 28 to go. So they're going to get 2 more laps. But if the rain starts coming down, that, of course, will make it even more interesting, as it is starting to fall. So plenty going on here, but we think 2 more laps to go then. The current order is now Sparrow, Chisnell, Taylor, Bartlett with the 5-second penalty, and Simard. But I think it's guaranteed to say it ain't going to stay that way. Somebody else in more trouble. That's another excursion for Harry Storer. It's all action everywhere you look.
Tim Storer, actually, but
Tim
easy
Storer.
Mistake to make. They're the same livery, aren't they, and same surname, clearly. Yeah, it's tricky out there, isn't it? People are getting caught out left, right and centre, and off goes the number 11. That is Michael Taylor off the road through Starkey's corner from the lead group. I'm not sure what happened there, but there may have been a tangle through Starkey's. Who's got the lead? It's Sparrow still just about from Chisnell and Simard. They've dropped now Steve Bartlett, who has the 5-second penalty anyway. So out of Coppice corner they go. Breathless stuff this. We might be about to start the last lap. We might be about to see a checkered flag. Let's wait and see. Sparrow needs to try and keep himself in front either way if he can. They're side by side behind him for 2nd. To the inside line, Simard here trying to get 2nd place away from Chisnell. He's late on the brakes. Gets the car into the corner. Nice move that. Slides through the chicane though, and that will compromise his exit. Is it a checkered flag? Is it a last lap board? It's a checkered flag, and it's a checkered flag for Adam Sparrow, who wins a proper Mazda MX-5 race. That was brilliant stuff. All-out warfare at times there between the leading group, but it is Adam Sparrow who survives it all to get the race victory. From Paul Simard 2nd, Neil Chisnell joins them on the podium, and Steve Bartlett will hang on to 4th position, I think, despite the 5-second penalty, because he was 6.5 seconds ahead in the end of Michael Taylor after his spin on the final lap of the race. So drama right to the flag. Steve Foden recovered reasonably well there to 7th place as well, although that won't be the result he was hoping for, only 1 place higher than where he qualified. And so Michael Taylor, who I think is the former Ginetta racer Michael Taylor, Scott's just pulled up some footage from Snetterton earlier in the year. He does look familiar to me. So Michael Taylor then, former Ginetta GT Academy racer, in the end didn't make the podium, so we won't get to hear from him, but he'll still have a story to tell after that one.
biggest giveaway also, he is racing wearing Ginetta overalls. So that
yes,
kind of
that's a
gives that
clue.
away too
Yeah.
in that sense. But and also in the internal BRSCC battle, it's now 1-1 because it is Luke Satch who finished ahead 20th. But yes, it was because I was looking at the group. But it wasn't that far away. That group of cars that involved both of them were quite close together, and it did make sure that. Charlie was 23rd compared to Luke Satch in 20th. So 1-1 in that battle. They have a chance to see who takes the tiebreak for today's action later on. But Adam Sparrow, a very well-earned race, you can say. Earned was certainly the phrase because he had to work extremely hard for that one.
Yes, didn't he just? That was good stuff, wasn't it? Sparrow then the winner, with Simard second and Chisnell third, then Steve Bartlett, Michael Taylor complete the top 5, Adam Craig, Steve Foden, Paul Bateman, Jason Greatrex and Dev Singhal completed the top 10 ahead of Harry Storer and Bo Parry. Dennis Pilmonkin was 13th, ahead of Chris Wright. Daniel Lengiel and Matthew McCluskey were next. Then it was Bradley McLagan, Chris Thelwell, Peter Williams and Luke Souch inside the top 20, as Scott mentioned, ahead of Simon Privet, Tim Storer, Charlie Snell and Joshua Pato. 25th, Andrew Gilligan. We lost Ollie Walden, unfortunately, from that race. Likewise, David Scowler and Richard Bartlett, who didn't complete the first lap. I think he retired to the pit lane at the end of the opening lap of the race. So, exciting stuff from